On this edition of Fed Gov Today with Francis Rose, the new CFO at HUD is a familiar face to the agency. A CX data shot in the arm for every agency and a delicate dollar balance at the Coast Guard. Welcome to Fed Gov Today with Francis Rose. The new Chief Financial Officer at the Department of Housing and Urban Development already knows his way around the building. He served in that position in the first Trump administration and now again in the second. Irv Dennis is the new and former CFO at HUD. Irv, welcome. Thanks for joining me. One of the things that you've done since you've been back at HUD is establishing the HUD Efficiency Task Force. What's your goal with the task force, Irv?
Well, the goal of the task force is to take the initiatives of DOGE and make it sustainable. It's a governance task force. I set something up prior administration and we branded it the agency-wide integrity task force. And what I want to do is take the efficiency ideas that are going on with DOGE and make it sustainable. So the DOGE team is here for 6 months to a year and a half, and I want this to be embedded into the agency. And we're going to focus on various initiatives. On the grant processing, we'll probably talk about that. I want to focus on contract management. I want to focus on IT modernization, and I want to focus on the people culture and make sure that that is embedded into the whole governance structure that's sustainable, not only with our administration, but and beyond as well.
What makes the CFO office the right place to lead all of that? You touch on IT modernization, and I'm sure you'll have partnerships in those with that effort with the CIO, with the Chief Acquisition Officer, and some of the contracting things you talked about and so on. But what makes the CFO spot the right place to lead those
The CFO
things?
spot is the right spot because we touch all aspects of the business. It's a very operational office. We're in charge of internal controls throughout the agency. We're in charge of reporting. We work very closely with the IT modernization. We know the programs. We know the budget process. We're in charge of the grant process and enterprise risk management. So there's no part of the agency that we don't touch. And it's a great agency-wide view, and we know how to collaborate amongst ourselves. What's good about this administration is a lot of us were here on the 45 of the first, so we all like each other, we know each other, and we work well together. So we're really excited about the opportunity to kind of pick up where we left off last time.
You mentioned grants. What visibility do you have about where the grants go and who they go to, and what visibility would you like to gain about those?
Yeah, there's two aspects to the grants. We want to simplify the process. We have 102 different programs. That's up from 60 when we were here last time. We have 65 different grant programs, and each of those programs have their own processing, and that's very inefficient. So we want to set up a center of excellence within HUD to make it a very simple process, one computer system, and simplify that process. The second part of the grant that we want to do that I'm really excited about is we do not have great visibility to what happens to the funds once it leaves HUD. It goes out to an initial grantee, Public Housing Authority, the state agencies when it comes to disaster recovery. And then there's multiple subrecipients of that. It could be a layer 2 or 3. We do not have great visibility into what happens to the funds. So we disperse about $78 billion a year currently. And I want to get better understanding, more accountability and transparency by not only the grantees but also the subrecipients. And we can gather that information through various models that we're putting in place and processes. And once we have that, we're going to create a data lake, and then we can do various artificial intelligence on that to have a better understanding of where the money goes, how it's being used. We can also cross-reference the vendors that are being used to see if there's any misuse or advanced or fraud related to that. So I'm really excited about that. If we can accomplish grant modernization, simplification, understanding what happens to the subrecipients with transparency and accountability, that'll be a huge win for this administration. The DOGE efforts currently are all about looking at funds internally between contract management, HR rationalization, program rationalization. But this is taking a look at the money beyond the federal government. Where is it going? How's it being used? And the goal is to make that more efficient. And this isn't just about, this is not just about cash management and accountability. It's also creating a better mission. If we find waste and misuse of the funds, that means money's not getting to the people that we serve. So we're a mission-driven agency, and we want to make sure that the funds are being used exactly as the taxpayers would like it to be used. So I think I think we're going to find a lot of efficiencies in that flow of funds once we get that set up. It's something we're very, very excited about.
That sounds like the same tack that you're taking toward contractor awareness too, and
Yeah.
understanding what the money goes, where the money goes once the contractors get it.
Yeah, yes. So the initial focus on DOGE is to look at contracts that might be wasteful to the agency, but I want to extend that to making sure that we know how we're managing contractors. And when I was here last time, we found a couple of instances where I felt contractors were taking advantage of the system. They weren't exactly delivering what they were supposed to be delivering. I didn't think they were doing it in an efficient way. So I want to put a process in place at HUD that we're really monitoring contractors to make sure they're delivering what they're supposed to be delivering on time in an efficient manner. And I do think I wouldn't put this in the fraud category, but I would certainly put it in the waste category. So that's part of this, the Efficiency Task Force. We have a team dedicated towards contract management, and that'll be exciting as well.
Do you have metrics in place to measure that already, or is this a construct that you need to put together?
It's a construct we need to put together, and I think we'll work with our PO or our purchasing group, and we'll work with the programmers that are overseeing the contractors. But we'll put a process in place with some accountability around it.
You mentioned IT modernization, and I imagine part of that is around the financial management systems that you and your team use. Are there other elements of it that you want to review with the task force?
Yeah, we want all of it. We have very complex IT systems. They're old, they're antiquated, they don't work well together. So we have a tremendous opportunity to go through a massive IT modernization effort. And we're going to start that very soon. We're bringing a new CIO on board soon who has that expertise. And it's also not just the IT modernizations with the systems, but also doing a lot of artificial intelligence implementation. We have a lot of manual processes. We did last time. We kind of we ran out of the calendar to complete what we started, but we're back at it, identifying areas where we can do artificial intelligence. And another area that I'm very excited about. I think between grants management, understanding the cash management and accountability, and IT modernization will be a huge impact if we can get that done over the next couple of years.
How do you resist the temptation to go out and get artificial intelligence tools for the sake of using them because people know they work, versus establishing use cases and determining this is what we want to accomplish, and then getting a tool that helps you accomplish that?
Yeah, it can be both, actually. We're going through a restructuring and trying to understand where we need to do things differently at HUD. We can consolidate different processes and set up center of excellence within HUD. So some of it will be, and we also can set up an AI and intelligence within HUD itself. I mean, it sounds more complicated than it really is. There's a lot of smart people out there, and if you get the right IT folks inside, you can make this an internal initiative as well as bringing contractors aboard.
One of the elements of this that you wrote about recently is the workplace performance culture.
Yeah.
How will you build that? And I guess that fits with what you talked about earlier about wanting to build these into the fabric of the way that HUD does business moving forward, so that it's not just DOGE for 18 months and that or that style, that this is the way that the agency does business moving forward.
Well, I actually write about this in my book quite extensively. I think the government needs to do a better job of equipping its employees to do work efficiently and effectively, and that comes through a mentorship type programs, it comes through education, and it comes from giving them the right tools to do what they need to do, and that comes from the IT modernization. So, as you know, the workforce is trying to get leaner in this environment, and that means the IT has to get more effective. And as we develop those tools and create an environment that's more current with the private sector, we'll have those tools available for folks, and we're excited about that as well. I think anytime you go through restructuring, it's hard, it's messy, and as I equate it to like building a bridge, it's hard when it says you're going through it, but when it's done, it's a beautiful thing. And I think that's what we're going through right now in government. I think this will be great when it's over if we can just get the ITs put together, do the restructuring, get some accountability around the cash flows. Well, we'll end up with a very, very strong product here at the end.
We have about 30 seconds left, Irv. How will you let the folks know that you want to keep, as the workforce gets leaner, that the tools that you're providing them with are going to make their jobs better, easier to do, more efficient, whatever the desired outcome is?
I think they'll see it. They're going to be part of the process. I mean, the people that are here, they want this change. They like the change. They want to do good work. And if we make them part of the process and lead with them, this will work out really well. And we got a great workforce at HUD, and I'm excited for them and excited for what we're doing.
It's great to have you back in the program, Irv. Thanks for joining.
Great to be back. Thank you.
You can read more about financial management at HUD on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. Up next, a CX shot in the arm for every agency. Fed Gov Today with Francis Rose continues in a moment. Welcome back. Agencies get better grades on customer experience now from the Government Accountability Office. According to GAO, more agencies are sending more CX data to the Office of Management and Budget. Martha Dorris is president and CEO of Dorris Consulting International. She's former Deputy Assistant Administrator in the Office of Citizen Services and Innovative Technologies at GSA. Martha, welcome. It is great to see you. What is the data that is most useful to agencies across government to send to OMB and to circulate among themselves internally and externally?
Well, agencies, first, it's nice to be here,
Thank
Francis. The data that's being sent to OMB is around trust, satisfaction, ease, efficiency, usefulness, and empathy. So that's really good. That's really good data. And the reason they're getting more data from agencies is the maturity process of customer experience through Section 280 of A11, which requires agencies to, or the high impact service providers, to send that data to OMB. And so over time, over the past 4 or 5 years, more and more agencies have been able to make that information publicly available because there's been changes like through the Paperwork Reduction Act. So that's good data to get on the feedback that you're getting from customers, but data that really allows an agency to understand the service levels that they're providing to their customers is really important as well. And that data is not readily available.
What is the holdup for that being available? Is it not being collected? Is it not being collated and curated well within the agencies? Some other problem?
Well, agencies, and some are doing it better than others, but agencies are usually collecting that they should be using it to manage each individual program. And that's things just like even in contact centers, operational data, call wait times, call handle times, and they do measure empathy through the A11 data, but so they are doing it. It is not collated in one place. Social Security was doing it through their security stat process, which is not happening at this time, but that's something that agencies should do, is think about and determine what success looks like, and then make it transparent to within their agency and to the public.
You anticipated my next question, because customer experience was included in President Trump 45's President's Management Agenda. It was in President Biden's PMA. It would not surprise anybody, I think, to be in President Trump 47's PMA. What are the kind of the gaps for what agencies should know about what they're doing in CX versus what they know today? Well,
I think one of the things that happened, and you're right, customer experience was in Trump 45, the PMA, but one of the things that they did was they created a cross-agency priority goal also, which kind of moved us from customer service to customer experience, which was, to me, a big deal because we'd been wanting to do that for a long time. Among other things, GSA created centers of excellence around contact centers and customer experience. There were CX strategists, they're the ones that kicked off Section 280 of A11. So I think we definitely got a good foundation going forward. I definitely expect that it will be in the next management agenda, especially knowing the focus on delivering a government and services that the citizens expect, demand, and deserve, frankly.
The propagation of CX people all across the agencies is maybe the biggest difference between today and when you and I first met, maybe longer ago than we care to admit. And you were kind of the lone voice in the wilderness,
Yep.
crying out about CX then. What's your sense of what maintains that momentum that has happened between that time and today when there are so many people paying attention to CX across government?
Well, I think we're actually seeing the results of the efforts. I mean, I focus on it a lot through the Service to the Citizen Awards and try to recognize it. I think we are at a point, though, with all of the cuts that have happened in the government where some of the customer experience talent is not there anymore. And so we'll see how that's rebuilt going forward, because I do expect that it's going to be a big rebuild to determine what those services look like going forward. But I think it's just many of the offices and the agencies have figured out that you can improve the way you deliver services, but I do think that there's still a gap in being able to document it and articulate the value to the leadership, right? It's not an easy thing to do in the government because funding is scattered all over the place, and pulling all that together in a way to tell your story has been difficult, and we've been working on that. You
mentioned the Service to the Citizen Awards. We have about a minute left. You've built that into something that is just tremendous, and people anticipate it every year. Remind me when it is again. It's a fall event, isn't it?
It's September 19th at the Waldorf Astoria.
And I will be there this year.
Yes.
Thanks to your very gracious invitation. What do you want people to take away from that? What makes a good submission for somebody to qualify for an award?
So what we're looking for is really articulated the results and the impact that you've made in the work that you do on your customers. And that could be internal customers as employees, but also the public. And that goes from, students to beneficiaries to taxpayers and on and on. So we're looking forward to it this year. It's going to be a big year.
It's great to have you on the program again, Martha.
Thanks, Francis.
You can read more about CX in the federal government on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. Up next, a delicate dollar balance at the Coast Guard. Fed Gov Today with Francis Rose continues in a moment. If you're looking for real answers about securing the cloud in government, you'll find them on Cloud Security In Depth, presented by Cisco. Available now on demand from Fed Gov Today. You'll learn how the Army's modernizing cloud infrastructure to stay mission ready, and how Cisco is helping federal agencies secure data across multi-cloud environments. 30 minutes of insight from top government and industry leaders, streaming now on demand at fedgovtoday.com/indepth. Welcome back. The Coast Guard's working on several major modernization programs. The highest profile one is the Polar Security Cutter. Rear Admiral Matt Lake is Assistant Commandant of the Coast Guard for Resources and Chief Financial Officer. At Sea Air Space, he tells me his service's financial management priority is a balancing act.
How do you balance frontline operations, the operations we're doing today, for example, on the southern border, and how do you balance that with recapitalizing the fleet of the future, because it takes several years of planning in order to get steel on target. And that's a really important balance to strike. We're at a point now in the Coast Guard where we've got to spend more resources and energy on recapitalizing the service while we sustain a heightened operational pace. Now, the good news is we've got strong support from our leadership in the Department of Homeland Security to do just that, to recapitalize concurrently with sustaining our surge operations on the southern border and elsewhere in support of the President's priorities.
What are the areas where you need to recapitalize the most quickly, in your view?
Yeah, so from my vantage point, that's probably in our cutter fleet. So we're still our ships. So we're still operating Coast Guard cutters that were built in the mid-1960s. That's one of the backbones of our medium endurance cutter fleet. So think of the ships that do drug interdiction, search and rescue, alien interdiction. All of that is done by ships that in some cases are 60 plus years old. And we've done an incredible job sustaining those assets, but we need to recapitalize those at speed.
The way that you'll do that is through a number of different programs. One of them I read recently is striking, that the Guard has purchased a commercially available icebreaker, which is, I know, a big need that we've been tracking for a number of years on this program. What's the story behind that from a financial management perspective to be able to make that move?
Yeah, so it's really a story about acquisition success to an extent. Is a national priority to ensure that Coast Guard in our nation has sovereign presence in our waters. We're an Arctic nation, and there's other nations that like to think of themselves as Arctic nations, and some that truly are, that don't necessarily have our best interest in heart. And so it's really important for the nation to get capability in the Arctic as quickly as possible. And this was an opportunity. We had a ship that was available in the market that was not being used. And so the Coast Guard went about and received funding, also some legislative relief from Congress to be able to move quickly. And from the time we got that money appropriated to us, to the time we got a ship was a matter of months, not years, which was a great accomplishment for the Coast Guard.
So is there a lesson that you learned from that you think would apply to other types of acquisitions for the Guard or for other services or even the civilian side of government?
Yeah, great question. I think for us, we're doing a lot of introspection on how we buy things in general, right? Most of our acquisition, strategies, policies, et cetera, even legislation, really were modeled off DoD, and they're designed to buy unique capabilities, state of the market in some cases. And the Coast Guard doesn't necessarily, sometimes we need that, but often we just need what's out on the market. And increasing the pace at which we try to use those commercial item, off-the-shelf type acquisitions, I believe, one, we can do that more effectively in terms of schedule as well as cost, as long as we're willing to give up some performance and capability. And I think as a service, that's that makes sense for us.
You make a tremendous number of infrastructure investments every year too. What's the state? What are kind of the statuses of those infrastructure investments, and what are some of the biggest ones in your portfolio?
Yeah, so a lot of our investments in the past have been focused on rebuilding infrastructure damaged by hurricanes, and fortunately, as we've rebuilt resilience into those facilities. So we've seen, particularly in the Gulf Coast, where a hurricane rolls through. Right now, we just sweep the sidewalks off and go back to work. Somewhat of an exaggeration, but my point there is some of that resilience that we built into our infrastructure has been incredibly helpful in avoiding costs as well as ensuring we continue our operations in those locations. But in terms of other infrastructure investments, really those are focused on building out bases and facilities that are supporting our new assets that are coming online. So some of those big locations, Seattle, Washington, Charleston, South Carolina, Newport, Rhode Island, ports in Virginia, a number of other centers of gravity of Coast Guard assets. And it makes sense as we get these new larger vessels that we cluster those in these locations to take advantage of the increased infrastructure and maintenance that's required for some of these ships. On the aircraft side, similar story. We're making investments in hangars and new facilities to accommodate some of the new aircraft we're bringing online, replacing some of the old ones.
Mm-hmm. When you look at the Coast Guard's financial management posture from a risk management perspective, what's kind of on the horizon that you're thinking about trying to be aware of, prepare for potentially?
Yeah, I think as somebody that is looking at out years, I need to make sure that the assets we're buying are affordable and sustainable over the long term. You never want to buy a really expensive car and then can't afford the oil changes, right? So I'm focused as the CFO is making sure we're making smart investments, have a full understanding of what the life cycle costs are. That includes what's the maintenance and sustainment philosophy, and then how do we budget that over the long term? Because those decisions that you make now have impacts 20 plus years from now, and that's one of the things that I'm most focused on as CFO.
Former role of yours was as the CEO of the Coast Guard Yard. How does that experience inform the way that you make decisions about not just shipbuilding, but
Sure.
other aspects of management across the guard?
So one of the things that helped me is running a shipyard, and that runs as essentially a nonprofit organization inside the Coast Guard. Understanding how industry operates, particularly shipyards, is really important when we're talking about budgeting for those activities. Making sure you have a steady order book for these shipyards and for acquisitions in general is really important, because one of the big things that I learned as shipyard CEO is you can make all the capital investments in the world you want in the shipyard, but if you don't have a workforce to do the work, you're out of luck. And often it takes 30, 40, 50 years to build expertise into a workforce. And so when you're building out your financial plans and your budgeting, you've got to look at the long term. You've got to give industry a clear signal that you're serious about steady planning and steady production, whether it's aircraft, whether it's ships, whether it's C5I systems. The other thing that I would say I took away from that experience is the importance of, as you build the requirements out for your new fleet, make sure you have the organic capability to fix it and maintain it as well. Because oftentimes we operate assets long after commercial industry may decide, hey, it doesn't make financial sense for me to do support, fill in the blank, whatever the asset is. And so having some organic capability is really important to operate the Coast Guard.
Quick final thought, we're almost out of time. What's the biggest challenge that you see ahead, or what are the biggest challenges you see ahead to that vision that you just described, to deliver the capability the Guard will need? You're thinking about now what you'll need 5, 10, 15 years down the line.
Yeah, I think continued funding is a concern, right? We've got strong support from my perspective in the current administration. How does that manifest over the very long term? In my mind, the way to address that is get these programs on momentum, right? Get some momentum behind them, deliver those assets with success, and then help with that, helping the American public understand what the Coast Guard does and why it provides value to the nation. It's not just about ships and airplanes and C5I systems. It's about the service the Coast Guard delivers to the nation and why we're a good return on investment.
You can read more about the Coast Guard's financial management priorities on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. FedGov Today continues in a moment.
Innovation doesn't wait, and neither do we. At Maximus, we solve problems, streamlining operations, delivering solutions at speed and scale that drive measurable results. From strategy to execution, we simplify complexity, building trust through expertise and innovative technology. Every service, every time. Efficient government delivered. We don't follow innovation, we drive it. Maximus.
FedGov Today TV returns next Sunday morning at 10:30. The director of the Defense Information Systems Agency, Lieutenant General Paul Stanton, will be here. I am Francis Rose. I'll see you then. Thanks very much for watching and have a great week.